Welcome to the Wellness Amazon podcast. This is a podcast for highly sensitive people, people that have high intuition and are just in tune with themselves and the outer world. Come and listen to multiple different high spectrum subjects and just peek behind the curtain. But I warn you, once you peek behind the curtain, you can never go back. Have fun. Enjoy. Hey, everybody. Welcome to episode 5 of the Wellness Amazon podcast. Today we have a special guest, my very dear friend, Annika, who's from Tennessee, and she is absolutely amazing. I'm going to link her website and her shop from Etsy in the show notes because you have to check it out. She is doing natal charts. She is doing these most beautiful, aesthetically pleasing printables for herbs, essential oils, crystals that you can just download and print yourself. Highly recommend. I have them. They're very dear to my heart. They're beautiful. She's very talented and very creative. She's also a certified health coach, and she still works in that field today. And welcome to our podcast, Annika.
Hi, thank you so much. And I can only give that back, all those things to you. So thankful to have you in my life.
Yay! We always thought that when we have our little talks and discussions and they went just into the deepest depth of our brains and souls, that we should let the world be part of these every once in a while because they're just too good. And our subject today is also a very big one. It's feminine energy. And I think this is a very important subject, especially no matter if you're an HSP or not, but I think especially if you're sitting in your feminine energy and you're an HSP, it's almost like you're even more in that universe because they are just so aligned with each other. And Annika is, to me, the perfect guest. That's why I chose you for this, because it is hard to explain, but I think that you really do sit very comfortably in your feminine energy and on a day-to-day basis. It's your default. And I think that sometimes depends on life circumstances, but it also really depends on our personality and how we move with life and we flow with life. So we're going to talk about this today.
Yeah, it's such an important topic. And I always, I thought about it before, like meeting up this morning. Like, it's such a complex topic as well, because, like, it's not a black and white thing, really, right? Like, there's female and male energies, and like each gender has both, really, right? Like, but the thing is, how balanced are they?
Mm-hmm.
So if something is out of balance, that's where it really shows to, that someone might potentially have issues, and especially people that are HSP, they're so intuitive, and the female energy is intuition, right? Like, it's the passive. And what happens when that is out of balance, and what can that do to a woman? How are we also, what are historic events that happened that have affected female and male energies? Like, I always think of it as like a distortion of
Mm-hmm.
some type. Like, we are all very, like, a lot of people don't really, like, it feels like, I mean, of course, I don't have all the answers. I'm totally
Mm-hmm.
fine too to admit I'm fine with not knowing everything. Like, it's totally fine with me. Like, we're here to learn. um yeah, but how does that affect us, like those primal forces that have been distorted over the years, over events, over whatever it is, like social, social, how do you say it, yeah, things that happen in happens in our community, or how are we being brainwashed, so to say, or whatever it is. Like, if a woman cannot really live out her female energies, I mean, there's a reason that we call it burnout. Like I always think of it like burnout, like how they burned witches back in the day. The fire energy, which is the male energy,
Mhm.
the active one. But yeah, it's like I said, it's so complex. So, what do you think about that?
I couldn't agree more. You were talking, and the two words that come to mind when you talk about these social norms and how everybody either has to fit in a box or we explode the box. It's these two very extreme scenarios, and to me the two words that come to mind are fear and shame. So shaming people for maybe even a natural state over the centuries, and like you said, when we bring this back to burning women, burning witches. But why? Because of fear. And we had to then shame that because, if we can't burn you anymore, we're going to shame you because that's the other thing. Um, and also what you said, yes, there's a balance of the yin and the yang energy, and whatever energy you feel more comfortable in from a natural state, not because you have put in there, not because you have to, not out of a state of necessity, but where you really do naturally feel home in, that is what you have to nourish.
Yeah.
But if you live in a society or a culture or whatever where you can't do that because there's pressure from the outside and shame, then that I really do believe that leads to illness, and that leads to depressions, and that leads to all kinds of other problems. And I have been deep diving into that subject probably in the past 2 years very intensely. And the thing about other couples, myself, my own marriage, and where there was things where I couldn't put my finger on, like why, I don't know what's going on here, why there's problems or issues or like weird vibes. Now I can, because I see that maybe those two have mixed or swapped roles, but they don't want to be in those roles. They want to be in their, natural energy that they feel more home in, but they can't, and they
Yes.
can't, they don't know how to fix it. And I had that in my own, partnership as well. So, I mean, that's nothing new for me. And I see this with so many couples now, especially the ones that are really close to me and open up about that and talk about that. And a lot of times, these mixed and matched and distorted energies are coming from social norms,
Mm.
necessity, survival. I have been pushed in that role, things like that, where it's like, okay, it's not, you didn't choose this, you had to do that. And I think, especially in our modern Western society, we're not any better because I feel like, especially for women, we get shamed no matter what we do. If we're in the extreme feminine, there's words that people use for that are shaming words. And if we are sitting in the more masculine and not leaving space for our feminine energy, there's also people that are shaming that. So
You
it's
can
very
never
hard.
really make it right, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I
Hmm.
also really believe that feminism, like I mean, I appreciate feminism, and like, it's not that I completely hate on it, but I do think that that movement of like the extreme, being an extreme feminist, has shot us in the foot because, it's like, I mean, especially living in the West, I don't feel like as a woman that I can't, work and all those things. I have all those rights that men do as well, and I'm super
Hmm.
appreciative for that. Like nobody tells me that I can't do those things, but like that they say, or that they give you the impression of, you have to be like, you have to go get your career, and have like this male energy of like bam bam bam, work work work, and hustle hustle hustle, which, I mean, of course that can feel really really good and satisfying, but I don't believe that women are made to to be in that environment all the time. I mean, because we have a cycle, right? Like it has to be like we have to get a like we have to have rest times. It's just in our nature, and if we don't get that, we get all sorts of issues. I mean, just our hormonal world is so complex that I just don't appreciate that, like that you kind of get put in those. That's probably what you mean by, you know, those societal norms
Hmm.
nowadays, where you have to work full time and make everything work, and also have to be a wife and a mom and a housewife, you know. Like you have to take care of your house, and it's a lot on women for sure. It's so much, and the complexity of this. I mean, we can, you know, you can go into politics and, you know, economy and all of those things, because I mean, it wasn't always that way, right? Like, it's just so interesting to me. And I mean, I feel kind of relaxed where I live, because I live in a pretty rural area, and there is a lot of women that can live that out, and, you know, live in their feminine and are not really being judged so much. But of course, being from from Berlin, in Germany, I was raised very different. Like it's just, you have to do this, you have to do that, and then you have to do that, and it's very, very normal that, like you said, right, those roles, especially when people, you know, there's not much marriage anymore. That's the first thing. So the commitment. So for me, marriage is not about the big party and, you know,
Hmm.
that fairy tale thing that they kind of, you know, that we know of. For me, it's like just that bond and that commitment that you really seal. I want to have the same name as my partner. I want other people to know, you know, I have that ring on my finger, and I'm like, it's symbolic for me.
Hmm.
Um, and I love that. And it's like my loyalty to my partner and to my family too. When we have, you know, for our kid to know, hey, we have that bond and it's sealed. Um, and where I come from, that's not just not the value system anymore, really. I mean, it's not the norm. And it's being sold as we are so, you know, independent, which I love independence super much. Like that's my thing. But that again, the distortion of um, what really does that mean when you have a family, you know? So it's interesting to have that perspective now, to be able to look back on where I come from, and see the differences of how I live now, how I choose to live my life now, what that does to me, and then
Okay.
how was my family dynamic growing up,
Hmm.
which I
Hmm.
would say that type of environment made it more possible for just people to not really stick together and figure it out, you know?
Hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. The running joke in our house, and my youngest says that. She's a teenager. She says, "I am a strong, dependent woman." And I'm like, "What?" She goes, "Yes, I am not independent. I am dependent because I cannot open the pickle jar by myself." I'm like, "Okay, well, you figured it out, girl. You figured it out." Because that's exactly, but that's everything in a nutshell when she says that, because it's I don't have to do everything that my spouse can do. My husband can do things that I definitely can. I maybe do them, probably, but do I want to? No. And guess what? He is way worse on that end, actually, if you see it from the other side perspective, because that's what you have to see. You have to always see it from both sides, right? If I was gone, he probably would be in more trouble, because he's like, when everybody is sick, he tells me all the time, "I don't know how to take care of people. I don't You can't get sick." And he doesn't mean that in a bad way, like you can't get sick because you have to clean the house. No, 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 no. He is really overwhelmed because he's like, "I don't know how you do that. I don't know everything about the herbs and the medicine, and I don't know their, like, medical charts and all that stuff. Like, I don't do that. And that's the thing where I think our society really screwed up, because when we went over to this extreme of women should do everything, because it's not, here's the thing, it's not freedom anymore. If I want every woman to have the choice. You have the choice. You have the freedom to choose. You can be the CEO. You can be the homestay mom. Yes, you choose whatever makes you happy. But in our society, it's almost not a choice anymore now. It's you have to in order to survive. But the mental load for women never lessened on the feminine side, on that nourishment side. It was, and again, there's exceptions to the rule. There's couples where this works fantastic.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Absolutely. But in most cases, and this is just from my experience over many decades, it is the female having the female role and part of the male role, and the male having the male role. So there's like, we're okay, now there's no balance. And
Absolutely.
this is where this burnout happens, because, and there's beautiful books about this too, the female mental load never lessened over the decades. It actually became more, because, again, most of the time, we are the ones that go to the teacher parent conference. We are the one that get the emails from the school. We are the ones who know what to meal prep or buy at the store, what kind of brands we do, like all these, the decisions we make during the day are so much more than someone who just goes to work and goes home and does absolutely nothing. Um, Even for, I would go so far and say, even for a woman without children, because we just have that. I don't know if it was the first or a second episode where I talked about the nothing box, where men can have that nothing box in their head. And I don't know, that has to be a genetic thing, where they can just be so okay with relaxing and thinking of nothing, really thinking of just blank stare. And females don't have that. We have like 500 tabs open at all times, even if we don't have children, because we think about our friends. We think about the next day. We think about, oh, I forgot to do this. And it's very active up there. And if you then add a 9 to 5 to that, there's so much for the brain. The brain is not made. They studied Homo sapiens. The brain is not made for that information flow that we have come in every day in our modern world. We're not supposed to live like this. Our brain is not made for that. And then you're in constant overdrive. And you just,
Because you want to nurture, you want to please everybody, right? Like that's our default.
yeah. And I'm sure if you listen to this and you get triggered, just know this. This doesn't pertain to, first of all, not for everybody, right? But from my own experience, like what you just said, your upbringing, I came to all of this, and I know we have the same thought process here. I came to all of these conclusions after years of shadow work. And you can call shadow work probably 200 other things. To me, it is really, and even with counseling, challenging my own beliefs and looking, where is the root of that belief, where it is coming from. Is that really mine? Because it's really hard to find yourself when, I'm 41. For 41 years and probably 9 months before that, I have been influenced by outside information, by people, by words, by whatever society is teaching me, experiences, all of that stuff shapes who you are. It is really hard to take off those layers, 4 decades of layers of influence, and trying to find out, who am I actually? And is that actually my belief? And where is this coming from? Well, come to find out, most of my beliefs, just like with you, came from my upbringing. And so my parents are divorced, and I was raised mainly by 4 women. My mother, her two sisters, and my grandmother. 4 women, all 4 women divorced or single, all 4 women entrepreneurs, full-time workers, sometimes multiple jobs, all 4 women not ever, ever happy in a relationship. And it was this, you don't need a man to be successful, and don't make yourself dependent on a man. That's bad. And all of that stuff. So when I got married to my husband and we moved from Germany to the US, and obviously I had to quit my job, right? It was like, and now they are implicating that fear on me. So now I'm second guessing my decision. Oh my God, what am I doing? Is that, oh, that might be a bad thing. I shouldn't do that. And now what am I going to do? I need a job. And my husband is like, totally different upbringing. Right? Very much in his male energy, like, I'm the provider. I'm going to provide. I don't know what the problem is. And I'm freaking out because what if he leaves me tomorrow? What if he leaves me tomorrow? Then I have nothing. And for my husband's like, why are you thinking about me leaving you tomorrow? Where is that coming from? So he grew up in, um, his parents are still together. They have been together for 48 years. They're high school sweethearts. It's very, very traditional, and I came from the straight opposite, right? And it is, I had to go through all those layers and then realize what I have been taught, that's not me. That's not necessarily me. And I almost feel like I am breaking an ancestral, like a curse, like ancestral trauma with this
Yeah,
because
you know what? You're letting that male, that healthy male energy in, like, because the female cannot really live her female, energies in a healthy way if there's not a healthy male, right? I mean, how important is it also for a female to let go and have that, healthy male energy in your life that does, protect you, that has that strength that you don't always need to have, that you can lean into. That's so important that those both, like, it's like a key, right? Like how
yeah,
important that is and how good that feels if you have a partner and that is in harmony for him
yeah,
as well.
yeah.
Hmm.
And I can tell you, I have never been happier ever than I am right now. And I'm to the point where it's so extreme. I almost want to walk around just in dresses with my flowy hair all day, and I make like herbal teas and all that stuff, I'm living that super, like, Middle Ages, like I would have been the witch on the stake, really, like, um that female energy where I make medicines all day and I do all of that stuff, and I'm not saying you can't do that with a 9 to 5. You can, you absolutely can. Is it the healthiest? This is good. That's going to be very, very hard, right? But, and I'm, again, circumstances, you don't necessarily have a choice, because when my husband was at a job where he was constantly gone, I had to live in that male energy a lot. I had to live, and then it was becoming an issue because it would. And not only did he say that, he was absolutely correct, because I admit to it, I was a total control freak. Why was I a control freak? Because I had to have everything under control so things would work with just one parent, and two children, small children. And then we moved and we knew nobody here and we were all on our own. And it's like, well, and I always would say, I run a tight ship here. And even in counseling, I would say that. And my counselor would be, and you are the captain? Yes. Do you have a co-captain? Nope, not really. Because there is a co-captain, but he's not on the ship most of the time, you
Yeah.
know? So it was out of a necessity. I had to navigate the waters with that mentality. I was everybody. I was mom and I was dad. And of course, he brought in money too. So that was not, there was not a worry about that, even though there was sometimes worry about that, but not in the sense of like, me being a single mom 100%. But I was sitting in that male energy a lot, and I couldn't turn it off when he came home. It was like, no, dude, we're here in our schedule, and you're bringing chaos in. Don't, you know, that wasn't good. And then I had to learn to pull out of that, and he got another job and said, I need to be home more. This is not healthy either. And it was very unhealthy for him too, by the way. That was just not me. That was him too. I was undermining his masculinity. I was mean. What do men do? I just saw a TED talk about this, and it's totally correct. He's the same guy that talks about the nothing box. He says when men are in a relationship where the woman is nagging a lot, they don't nag back, they withdraw.
Mm.
And that's what my husband did. He withdrew. And we did a lot of marriage counseling for many, many years. Was the best thing ever. Highly recommend for everybody. But we had to learn how to like reset everything. And I tell you what, I read a book, and that the title of that book alone is a trigger for a lot of women. It was a trigger for me. It said The Surrendered Wife. And it was highly recommended by women who had done what I have done now, way before me. And so you need to read that book. Every chapter, I'm reading the book and I'm closing the book and putting it away, and I go, wow, this woman is crazy. She's absolutely nuts. And then I thought, okay, why are you triggered, Melina? Let's sit down and talk about it. I really did. It was almost like therapy where I had to challenge myself just reading one chapter of that book. But it opened my eyes to what I was doing.
Would you say that mainly because of your upbringing?
That was a huge part of it. Yeah, because even in counseling, and when we talk about counseling, we have talked about this before. There is a lot of different counseling styles. I had one counselor that was I'm not the let's talk about it and then I go home kind of gal. No, no, no. I need to be challenged. You need to go in my brain and fix it. And this counselor, a female, she was the one working on a whiteboard. I mean, she was hands on kind of. And she goes, okay, can you repeat what you just said? And whose thought is that? Where is it coming from? Is that your belief? Say it out loud. And I would say it and I go, that's my mother talking. Yeah, that's not me. And then I would go and think of that was the first time, and this is years ago, probably 7 years ago, that I went through all of the females that raised me, really thinking about every personality of them and every situation. And are they in happy relationships? How are they behaving? And it's very negative, very always money issues, no happy relationships. Very, very unhealthy behavior in relationships too. And then that's when I thought, might not be the best values here. You're taking over from. Kudos to them. Highly respect all of these women. They were strong. They were amazing. They did amazing things. They did you, the most young energy jobs like truck driver, taxi driver. My mom to this day can probably build you a house. She's so handy. But they also had to do that. They were pushed into that. They didn't choose that for them. They did not. They were pushed because of toxic masculinity, which
Mm.
is that is a word I think we need to use very carefully. But my grandfather was abusive. So that's toxic
Yeah.
masculinity.
Oh, yeah.
And so they had to drop out of school early and work because, back in the, what is that? 60s, they, if your husband was gone, you were on your own. There was no like alimony or whatever child support. He didn't have to pay a single penny ever. So they were just pushed into that early on in their early life. And but again, generational curse going on.
Hmm. I do think though, like for example, my mom is also very much like um, you would say like a tomboy, kind of gal, which I absolutely love that about her. And she has that tendency too. And it's totally, I love that when women, are not afraid of doing things that are normally like more in the male role, totally fine. But the thing is, what I've learned is that it doesn't have to, but it can be hard for those women then to let a male step in. That's the thing. And
Mm-hmm.
then where does that really come from? um I don't know, maybe it is because you're scared that someone takes it away from you, or maybe it is because women are being told all the time, you can do this, you can do that, which, of course, everybody can do whatever they want. But I feel like a lot of people understand it in a way that, well, yeah, I can do everything. And I don't, like you said, I don't need a man in my life, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I do really believe that you can, if you're not being conditioned like that,
Mm-hmm.
and you love, building or whatever, you can totally still let a male in, or someone with male energy. Like it's always,
Mm-hmm.
there's no black and white here. It's like for everybody, right? But um yeah, it's so interesting how that works. And I wonder in general, where it would go in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Because we're already seeing, we're being careful with our kids as well. What influence do they get?
Mm-hmm.
Everything is so there, it's not like you have to go to the library to find things out. It's everywhere. But there's good information, there's bad information, there's influences, media, whatever, social media. What does that do to boys growing up, to girls growing up? Will those roles, I mean, sometimes also I see it that there is an extreme of people taking on those roles, and they take it a little too far, where they don't allow any wiggle room. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So, like I said, it's not a black and white thing, and it's so sensitive, which is, I mean, yeah, it's sensitive.
Yeah. Yeah. And I heard something the other day, very interesting. When and you can probably reverse this too, when a female, and of course, this is when she actually wants to be in her feminine energy, but she can't because she's so rigid and so used to sitting in that male energy and being the doer and the shaker and the yang and the I got this, I can do this, right? When you have that, the only thing that works in that relationship is a man who is more male, who's even he had
Yeah,
bigger young energy than her, because he's going to come in and say, yeah, I know you can do this, but I can do it too, and I'll do it amazing, and you can just sit and relax. And she's probably going to have some resistance, but there's going to be a trust building of, oh yeah, I can, but I don't have to do it, and that then, and it goes the opposite way too, right? And the funny thing is, I see this in this house, in my own household, where my girls, I have two girls, are now different because of the change I have gone through, and therefore the change in our relationship of my husband and I. They are now dressing differently. They are talking differently. But also what you see, and this is the most beautiful thing, when you when they talk about maybe like their other friends that are the same age and how they behave with boys and other friends, and you see my girls, you can really tell who has a father at home that loves them unconditionally and tells them all the time and treats them right, because even I see that in myself. My girls have a better foundation than I ever had, because my dad is amazing, but he wasn't always in the picture. So I sometimes you project this later in life to your partner where you look for like approval and you look for validation. I do that with my husband a lot because I didn't get it with my dad enough. Where my girls, with their, they don't have boyfriends, but boys that they're talking to or whatever, they don't have that at all. They do not. They have so much confidence. It's shocking. It is shocking to me sometimes. And I absolutely think that this is the influence of, you do not need to look for approval in a boy,
Yeah,
because you have that at home from your dad. You have that foundation that's filled, it's beautiful. It doesn't need to be, filled with other things later on. Yeah, with my husband, when I was talking about that that you need someone who is more male. All the relationships I had before I met my husband, they were, I don't want to call them toxic masculinity, but they were wishy-washy. Let's call it that, okay? I don't have another term. They were not definitely not sitting in their confidence, male energy. And I'm not talking about cocky. I'm just talking about like being in your body and being present and being me and being okay to be that, right? So there was never a good balance. And when my husband, I mean, if you saw the last episode, my husband's like this Alaskan honka man.
yeah,
He came into my life and it was this big male energy, where I was just totally like, I can be allowed to be in my feminine. I didn't know how to do that. And once you, for me, once I went into that female energy, wow, it is just so flowy. It is
yeah.
so, how would you explain it? Because I don't know if I can find the words for it.
I mean, as a Libra, I would just always use the word balanced and harmonious, feeling safe. But same here. I mean, I don't want to be judgy, but being from Germany, it was very different. The societal norm there compared to rural Tennessee, of course, is just very, very different. And I do have the feeling that there's just a lot of guys that I have met, they're just not into wanting to commit. There's not
Mm-hmm.
this want of wanting to be a protector, someone that lives in, like you said, that lives in that. So for me, it's the same thing. When I met my husband, that was the first time that I've really met someone that represents what I didn't know really existed, honestly, at that
Mm-hmm.
time. And I never thought I would ever get married because that's how I was raised. Like, you don't have to get married, maybe for taxes later on, kind of, maybe for that, but it was never a goal of mine. And for my husband, it was a goal. It was a goal to get married someday with the love of your life, to have a family, um, and to be like, to really sit and enjoy that role, of being a male. And that doesn't mean he doesn't men don't can't have female energies as well, and that they need that too. It's the same,
Mm-hmm.
like we need male. If we sit too much in our female energies, we don't get stuff done, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, we need also this action
Yeah.
power, and that's the male. Like, it has to be always a balance. But yeah, it's just amazing. I'm so thankful, because otherwise I could never have that conversation with you. I probably, if I would have not met my husband, I would tell you, yeah, women can do it all. And I mean, they can, but in a way of they don't need a man. I would
Mm-hmm.
probably be just still be conditioned in that way. And that
Yeah.
was just because of my surroundings. Like, I'd had to be, it was as almost when you like had a boyfriend as a girl, you felt like, oh, like, lucky me, you know. Like, it was not as, the dynamic was different. It was kind of like, okay, the women are more the chasers.
Yeah.
And the women want someone that commits, but you can't really find that much. You know,
Yeah.
that's my experience. It doesn't mean
Hmm.
everybody in Germany has the same experience.
Yeah.
I don't want to hate or anything. Of course, there's also people getting married, you know, but I mean, just that was my surroundings and my experience, and same my family dynamic. My parents divorced when I was like 4 years old.
Hmm.
Very, very, very ugly divorce. I did have time with my dad, but because he worked so much, I really didn't much, and yeah, so it was for me, it was very distorted. I mean, it I still can't believe that I grasp on that track that I'm on right now because of my upbringing. Like, you would think, because I really didn't have much of that in my life. It's more from my grandparents, honestly. I had it from my grandparents, actually. Yeah, that's where I learned healthy male female dynamics. So yeah,
Hmm.
they influenced me for sure, but not my parents, and not my surroundings, other than grandparents. But my grandparents also, they were just very, very traditional. I I think also the term traditional, a lot of people will probably smirk at that, you know, to say that, because
Hmm.
they think immediately like Amish style or something. You know what I mean? You know? But when I say that, I just, yeah, it's honestly the people that I know that do have the healthiest harmonic relationships. Their relationships are pretty traditional in terms of values. It doesn't mean that they are super conservatives or whatever, you know, right? Like, doesn't
Hmm.
always have to mean that, but yeah, it's just they sit in that for sure.
Yeah. I get a newsletter that is a newsletter for it is a Christian based newsletter, but it's for parents with teenagers. They talk about, you know, new terms that these teenagers are using so you know what kind of language they speak, because sometimes you don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Um, and they had some studies that they published from, I don't know where the studies were conducted, but it was survey studies where the new generation, so Generation Z and Alpha. So I have actually two. My oldest is right on the tail end of Gen Z, and the younger one is right at the very beginning of Alpha, which they're only 13 months apart. It's weird,
Yeah.
but they're right on that verge. And apparently, these new generations are flipping everything that we have been growing up with. They want to be courted. They want to have the boys asking them out. Boys and girls both in those surveys said, actually, I want to get married. I want to have a commitment. I want to have a family. More and more girls are like, yeah, I actually want to be a mom. I want to take care of my family. And it's coming back. It makes a comeback. And I think it is because those two generations are so, they like don't care so much anymore. They're trying not to be like, I feel like that. They, of course, they're influenced from their peers, but they're more, they don't care so much what other people think of them, almost like, like our generation was very, very like, you have to be trendy, you have to do what everybody else is kind of doing. And I absolutely love that. And I think it is just like what you said, it's traditional shouldn't be a bad word, and it's also a little bit of a primal urge, probably, because we are here to procreate, and we are here to do those things, and we have our genes and our lizard brain that is still there and is still having something to say. um, and again, it's not that you can sit in both energies, but you have to sit in the energy that makes you feel good. And if you sometimes maybe have to challenge yourself and see, do I really want to be like this? Is this really making me happy? Or why am I here? Am I here out of necessity? And I have a question for you. Do you think that we both had the chance to heal from our upbringing influence, to say, because we're not in that situation anymore because we both moved far away from our families and from that culture as well into something more traditional,
Yeah,
using air quotes. Um, I think for me, it had an influence on me and it helped me to see the other side.
absolutely.
Um,
Same for
yeah.
me. It's like this of, it was so traumatic in a way. When you grow up and you don't really have like a healthy family dynamic, that I just knew I don't want this with the family that I'm building. But I don't know if I would think the same way if I'd still be there and I would have not met my husband, because he showed me so much. He showed me a completely different way, and he explained so many things to me that I just didn't know that exists like that.
Hmm.
So yes, absolutely.
Yeah. Yeah. I feel very blessed that I was able to be surrounded by people that proved me wrong,
Hmm.
that it's not a negative thing to be in a yin yang relationship, um, and to have trust and to be okay in that flow, which is, this is going to be a whole nother episode because when we talk about trust and flow, it's like this whole, like, the universe is going to take care of you type thing. But I think that females, and I don't know where this saying came from. I think it is actually written in the Bible somewhere too, and actually in multiple religious scriptures, not just the Christianity one, but it's always coming up. Women lead men to God, is like that saying. It is because it's the females that usually come in with the spirituality. It's the
Hmm.
females that make
Thank
your
you.
house a home. It's the females that turn, we create, we are the creators, right? The men are the building block guys, and we then create something out of it. Um, and that is such a beautiful symbiosis of things. And um I'm just glad that I can appreciate every relationship, no matter what works for you, unless somebody isn't happy in there and
Yeah,
it's not working, and then you have to go and challenge your beliefs. It is.
absolutely. And that's you're getting a good point, because I really, really, really much struggle with, yes, we have a traditional relationship, but I could never ever, say that everybody has to live that way.
Mhm.
And I love that you can divorce, because I do think there are people that need a divorce, and it's the saddest thing. And I'm seeing this with quite a bit of people that stay married just because they're afraid of what do others think, or stay married for the kids. And I have to say, I just don't agree with that, because if it doesn't make you happy and you really can't find a way, even though you tried everything, hey, you can, I know people that made it work, that are very, have the right mindset to make it work and be friends, or, and move on, and then really find. Not everybody really is that lucky that they do find that they make always the right decision. And I think in general, it's so hard for people to admit that they are.
Mhm.
And that's something I think we just have to learn to be okay with. Hey, I was wrong. I was wrong then, but I can always change it. Like, it's never too late to change things. I could like change my mind tomorrow about whatever it is. Nobody knows, and I don't want to just like, because it would be uncomfortable to admit that I'm wrong and just sit in that, but it's still in you, right? Like, it holds you back. So
Yeah.
just, I think that's important too, that to be like a little bit, to have that wiggle room,
Yeah.
right? Like,
Yeah. Absolutely. And I think when you challenge that thinking, a lot of times it's based on fear too, when you get to resistance, because I think, especially for us women, a lot of times it's this fear that like you trying to take something away from me, and that's not it. It's not it. Again, you should have the freedom to do whatever you want to do, and we are now, at least in the Western world, where you can do anything you want. You like, again, you could be in politics and be a really really high up, or you could be on the other side of the spectrum, and I'm not saying up and down because they are both equal value, but you could be on the other side of the spectrum and say, I'm going to be a homestay mom
Yeah.
or a homestay wife. You don't even have to have kids for that or whatever. If the budget works, the budget works, it's great. You can choose. Um, but I think, again, that freedom is a little bit tricky nowadays because, for a lot of people in this economy, they don't have that. And I was just talking to a lot of actually my friends, and some of them still in Germany. And total side note, for all you who have never lived in Europe, please stop romanticizing
Yes.
Europe. It's not how everybody always thinks, oh, Germany, you get like, free health. Nothing's free there. So just, okay, on the side note. But even over there, a lot of them are like, I am so tired of sitting in both of those energies. I am so depleted and exhausted, and I would love to live without that fear of losing my job when I choose to be on maternity leave for longer than 6 months. Yes, that's a thing. That's also a thing over there. You're not completely 100% protected like everybody thinks. Um, And I know that 6 months is a lot in comparison to the American way. But still, you have 6 months. That's a tiny little tiny itty bitty baby, you know? And that's where it already starts. And over there, the economy is just as damaged, where you don't have that choice anymore.
You don't know. But most
No.
people, they really do have to have two jobs to be able to afford their lifestyle. Um, yeah, I know a lot of people that are very mad right now as well. Over there, yeah, for sure. Uh,
Understandably so.
there is
And
not
I
much
know
that
if,
is left on the paycheck after everything is deducted.
yeah. I'm trying to imagine how I would have turned out, quote unquote, if my parents were in a balanced relationship, married, right? I call it conscious monogamy, right? We're consciously choosing that one partner for life, and my mom would have raised me as a mom that when you say mom, you envision that mom, right? Bringing me to kindergarten, picking me back up, making my lunches, all of that. I didn't have that. I wonder how that would have influenced me as a person, and how very little damage control I would have to do today because of that upbringing. There's so many studies out there about mother nurturing children and what that does in children and what it does when it's not there. There's they figured out that cortisol levels are completely whacked in newborn babies if they are not with their mother. It's insane.
And
So,
oh, sorry.
no, go ahead.
But then the thing is as well, there is also people that over nurture.
Yes.
And then when you do that, and then you very often have the kids, being unappreciative and kind of entitled, right? Like
Mm-hmm.
there we again have this balance of, okay, yes, I nurture, but if I do it, if I over nurture and waddle them too much and all of that, it could create a completely different outcome too.
Yeah,
Which for
absolutely.
us, for example, I would say it applies that we have this appreciation of that different world.
Yeah. And that is also, I wonder, when you have that and when you think about the person who over nurtures, where is that coming from? Why is that there? right? What is that maybe compensating for? Is there something you're doing because you didn't have it? Or is that a pattern that's being repeated, or what's going on? Um, I think whenever, like when you say balance, such a big word, right? It's so important. And whenever there's something out of balance, there's always a reason for it. There's always something else that was out of balance before that and kind of like tipped it off like a domino. Um, yeah.
Like a ripple
Wow.
effect then, yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Complex.
And
Oh,
yeah. And I am just again, I am obviously as an HSP even more sensitive than just being female, quote unquote. But I think as being a female HSP, it's just, and I'm a Pisces, well, the probably most sensitive of all the zodiac signs. It's just all the layers that are there. I can now appreciate it. I am now in a healthy space where I can appreciate that I can foster it and nurture it and just live it, and not looking at it anymore as a weakness or
I
I
mean,
mean,
it's a superpower then for you.
yeah.
You can use it, but you can sense it much quicker if you have the sensitivity when someone needs what. You can sense it. You can steer it earlier. You can help earlier. And yeah,
Yeah. And the thing is too, for everybody who's listening and curious about when we're talking about shadow work and all of that stuff, I have been doing this for over 2 years now. And just now in the past 6 months, when I really did it kind of like the turbo, where I did all the things like EFT and trauma tissue massage because the issues is in your tissues, and all of these things are happening probably for 15 years. I was not able to cry. And mind you, I get teary eyed very fast. If we talk about something, I just have to look at the Olympics and I see athletes winning, and I'm like, no, but it's not really coming out. It's just, it gets there, and I have that thing in my throat. My throat gets
mm,
really tight, and I want to cry, but it's not really. But this really crying, like a good cry, that was a blockage. That was my yang energy saying, that's a weakness. We're not doing that. Don't do that. Even though I'm not saying that males shouldn't cry. This is a societal thing, I think. And just now, the past couple of months, I have started with EFT. I had one episode where it's just ugly cry, and it felt so good. And then the tissue thing where there was a spot and I thought, oh my God, I'm going to cry. And it just came out, and all of these memories came up that was like, like mother issues came up and all that stuff where I thought, what is happening? You're pushing that part on my body and this is happening. This is weird. But now I know, okay, we have to address that. We have to keep going and get this out of my body. But that is why I am in this incredible flow state where I actually am, after again 2 years, at a point where I can address those things and get this out and be in the energy that I want to be in and allow myself to be in that energy. I allow myself to cry. I allow myself to let it out. And again, communication with my husband, because he don't know what's going on. The poor guy. He's like, what's happening? Why are you crying? So we both have to, I mean, every time you work on yourself, you have to let somebody in on that. But this allowing yourself to be who you really are, and allowing yourself to be in that energy that where you feel home in, you need to let yourself be feeling home in that, is incredibly important. And it is so hard. It's so hard. Like, kudos to everybody who does it, because again, if you're not there yet, that's okay, because this is hard. Because you have to go through well, you have to go against a current, right? You have to go against our cultural standards, our societal standards, your upbringing, your influences, decades probably of programming
Mm.
that you have to unlayer that.
The thing is, as well, is what I'm thinking, because I love, the thought of, consciousness and all those things, like the metaphysical things. So I wonder how much, because DNA is transferred, and I believe if DNA is transferred and physical things, 100%, in my opinion, consciousness, there's stuff that gets transferred as well, and how much has happened, back in the day that still affects us on a
Hmm.
conscious, collective consciousness level, but also ancestral.
Hmm.
Like you said, like the ancestral things, 100%. I believe that we can carry those on and then can break them or not or whatever, right? But they're there, and that explains for me a lot of things that sometimes people struggle with, and they don't have an explanation for it because it's nothing that they can remember that caused a certain trauma in their lifetime or whatever. So I wonder in the future what we will find out really about that, which, I mean, yeah, there's already a lot of studies about things like that, but they are not really being accepted by the mainstream. So
Yeah.
yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I have seen some, and I wish I could find the link for that study where they had the mice and they put them in boxes that had electric current underneath, and they shocked the mice whenever they dropped like I think it was a geranium smell. It was something with a flower. So the mice smelled, then shock, and they did this over and over. So the mice knew, when I smell this, I will get hurt, right? And then they breeded these mice with different ones that didn't have that upbringing, and the babies were now put in another box, and they dropped the same scent in there, and they had the same reaction even though there was no electricity in that box at all. So that was ancestral trauma, because one of their parents was shocked every time they smelt the geranium, and now they never had that experience, but they knew, just in
Isn't
their,
that
it was in their, yeah, it was in their DNA. It's
it's so
crazy.
crazy? Yeah.
So yeah, how much do we actually, and also in the womb, what happened in your in the womb when while your mom went through some tough stuff, and stressed out. um I heard that on the, what is the podcast called, Red Pill Your Podcast is an amazing podcast about health. um he was saying that when women are pregnant and they're super stressed and they have adrenal fatigue, they take the they deplete their baby's adrenals so they feel better. So usually if you have adrenal fatigue, and it happened to me, and you're pregnant, you feel amazing. And you're like, oh, being pregnant is fantastic. Well, it's because you're depleting your baby's adrenals to nurture yourself. So now the baby is born and already has a little bit of a deficit. So it's just really, really bad. So for everybody who wants to get pregnant, please de-stress your life, detox, do all the things, take lots of naps. It
Yes.
is just really, it is essential on how the baby, what the baby then gets exposed to, even without you thinking about it. And all of those things play a role in all of that. We have our little package that we carry that has a million reasons for being the package that it is. Like you said, our ancestors, our grandmothers, how was that? Our grandmothers already have their granddaughters. Right. Yeah. 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 So, I mean, that alone, you can't tell me that doesn't have an influence.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. It's just wild. Wild.
I think we need another one.
Yeah, I mean the whole baby stuff and pregnancy in general. Wow, what a topic.
And to give a little bit of an appetizer, we're going to have another episode where we talk about HSP and parenting, which I think some of that stuff that we started talking about is going to go into that one in depth of either you are an HSP parent or you have an HSP child or both.
Yeah,
Yeah.
will be a good
Yeah.
one.
Oh man, this was great, Annika. Thank you so much for coming on the show and talking about the yin and the yang and the balance and all the
The
things.
Libra and me, always wants to talk about balance.
And I appreciate that because we all need more balance in our life. We all need a Libra friend. If you don't have a Libra friend, you need to go find one.
Mm-hmm.
All right. Well, thank you so much for coming on.
Thank you for having
And
me.
I know we will see your beautiful face again on here. So, very excited about that.
I am as well.
All right. Bye, y'all. Thank you so much for being here with me today. I hope you enjoyed. You can give it a thumbs up, you can give it a review, you can share it with somebody you think might resonate with this. Have a great day. See you next time.